And we're live. What's up, guys? Today is Wednesday, September 18th. I got a good call for you today. We're going to be going over something very boring, and I apologize, but it is necessary. I had a long talk yesterday with a good investor in DFW, and he wants to scale. And he was, we're just talking about all things operations. Where do you start putting your time, energy first? And it's as simple as the passion skill matrix, right? So stick with me today. It's going to be a good call. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, smash the like button. Let me hear you. As always, little thing I want to get to before we start. Tom, do you have a link for that or anything? I mean, I guess I can pull one up, but I have the call pulled up, but he's not speaking yet. Jerome Powell speaking in at 2:30. So, well, that's 1:30. That's going to be in a half hour. I have it pulled up. I'm going to maybe segue into that and listen to what he has to say because they just dropped the rate by 50 basis points. So they dropped the rate not by 25, by 50. That is huge. We're already seeing markets have just blowing up spikes. Who says the Fed isn't part of politics, right? I've been saying all year, folks, they're going to drop it right before the election. So here we go. That's good. Obviously, it's going to let people ease up. So we're going to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to hear why he went to 50, not 25. So that is one of the main reasons that I want to listen in when he starts speaking. So hopefully you guys don't hate me when I segue off. I guess we can get into today's call before anything. What do I want to show? I'm going to pull up our passion skill matrix real shortly just to show you it. No, I'm not. I changed my mind, and that's okay. I can do that. We'll do that at the end. I'm going to go over passion skill matrix. It's really simple. It's what you like to do and what you're good at. Okay, really basic, right? Really boring, but you're going to break it down into a 4x4 quadrant. All right, so we're 2x2. Sorry, four total, 2x2. Somebody's going to be out there killing me. Every job you can throw into this, okay? Every job that comes down in real estate, acquisitions, dispositions, what are you, systems, processes, emails, marketing, talking to people. What are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you like doing? What do you hate doing? I used to really like turning wrenches, but I hated fucking sweating. So I got out of the oil field, right? Like it was fun, it was rewarding, but at the same time, man, it really sucked for my sweat glands. So I changed. You ask yourself the same thing. When you're going through real estate, do you enjoy talking to people or do you hate talking to people? If you don't like talking to people, then you absolutely should not be in acquisitions, okay? The first thing you should get out of is acquisitions. If you're not good at it, you got to get out of it. Sorry, I went blank for a second. So we're going to jump into it. Each section is broken up into a different, okay? So what you're not good at and what you don't like doing, these are both negatives, let's just say. That's the way I think of it, right? So negative, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and positive, positive, right? Remember math class? The negative, negative, this is what you need to eliminate. or outsource. Okay, this is what do we call this? It's literally outsource or eliminate. So sorry. You if you can't eliminate it because it's something that you need, then you're going to outsource it. Okay. Uh, Perfect example of this. If you suck at systems, right, and you're only good at phones, hire a VA, right, or assistant, a professional assistant, to outsource all of that. You still need to do data entry. You still need to understand and follow up with everything, right? But if you are just bad at that, obviously get a partner, get an assistant that's going to manage that for you. Just a little quint. Like to do, but you're not good at. Okay, this is your growth. So these are things that you enjoy doing, but you suck at doing at the time. But that's okay. If there is an opportunity for this to become a positive, you can spend some resources, you can spend some time and grow in this area, right? So, perfect example. If you're not good at talking to people, at buying properties, if you're not good at negotiations, right? But you enjoy it, you're a good people person. You just haven't gotten down the numbers game yet. You haven't gotten down the actual script or the pitch or anything like that. Spend time in this, right? Get some coaching. So this is where you're going to get coaching and mentorship. Right? You you have the opportunity to grow in this. Again, this can be something as simple as negotiations. You enjoy talking to people. This can be something as simple as systems, right? You're good at computers. You just don't understand systems and processes and everything. That's okay. You can learn it. You can put time and energy into it. So, things that you're good at, but you don't like doing. This is your default zone, all right? It's your default zone. Make sure you guys are spell checking me too, because you know how much I suck at spell checking. This is your default zone. This is where you end up all the time. Oh! TJ's going to be pissed. This is where you end up going to just because you're good at it. All right. When you're first doing real estate, a lot of times we default to the acquisition side just because that's what got us into it. That's what got us our capital. It got us money. It got us a deal or two. But when you start scaling, you can't stay in acquisitions. You always jump here, right? A lot of times when you're starting to hire out, it's tough to get out of your own way. So if we're trying to delegate or put somebody else into this position, a lot of times we slap their hands out of it and we'll do it better. Okay. Because we know we can get so much out of it. If we're operating at 100%, the person under me is never going to be at 100%. That's okay though. They're at 80%. But they're at 80% at times when you're not even around. So that's the benefit of it. Okay. Trying to think if I had any notes here. I'll go later on into examples. This is usually your default zone. It's just where you fall into, okay? But you want to get out of it. This is your sweet spot. Okay, this is a positive, this is a negative, positive. This is a positive, negative. That's a negative, negative. Yeah. Did I do all those right? Yeah. Yeah, I did. Okay. My math teacher would be so proud. This is where you want to spend all your time. Something that you really enjoy doing and that you're good at. Okay. I'm telling you, folks, a lot of people are really good at something that they hate doing. And they get stuck here and they never get out. Okay. One of the first things you have to understand is don't let somebody else do something at a fraction of what you're good at. Right. So I'm just saying, if you're doing it at 100%, let them do it at 75%. That's okay. They're going to eventually grow, get two people that are doing it at 75%, whatever the hell you need to. A lot of times this turns out to be the acquisitions, all right? A lot of times this is where you're handing off to acquisitions kids because you're going to start focusing on lead gen, all right? Understand they're not going to do it as well as you, okay? Once you put everything in here, right, by the way, right, once you understand, all right, well, I have to do systems, I have to do processes, I have to do transaction coordinating, okay? These are all things. Let's just start listing some of those things, all right? So you have acquisitions, you have dispo, right? You have systems. Marketing we'll throw in there. Even though it is a big lead, right? It's your lead gen. I'm gonna put it toward the bottom just because you can throw some money at it and let somebody else do it. That's part of delegating, right? Offloading. If you're over here and you're shit, let me stay on track. Transactions. Or TC, right? We can stop there for right now. So when you're first starting out in real estate, you're doing all of these, okay? You're going to be working on lead gen. You're going to be out there door knocking. You're going to be cold calling. You're going to be mailing out flyers. Whatever your marketing channel is, you're going to be doing it yourself. You're then going to talk to people. You're going to get contracts signed. Once you get that contract signed, you're going to have to dispo it. You're going to have to sell it. Even if you're not selling it on market, if you're going to wholesale it, even if you are selling it on market, that's still a process, right? Once you do this enough, maybe in the beginning, you don't have the systems. That's okay. Eventually, you're going to have to start building out systems. The entire thing, by the way, your acquisitions, your dispositions, you have to be managing your transactions, right? Who's doing your transaction coordinating? If you're not, if you're just handing it off to your title company, you're going to have drop contracts. So in the beginning, when you get into real estate, you're doing all these things, right? And you want to start scaling. How do you start scaling? Who do you hire first? Is it a bunch of cold callers to start doing warm lead gen? So then all you're doing is answering calls. You're not doing lead gen anymore. But then once you get calls and you get deals under contract, who's going to actually do your dispo and your transaction coordinator? Right? Each one of these, you have to sit down and put it in a block somewhere. Am I going to hire out? Am I going to partner with somebody? That is okay, by the way. All of these are reasonable. When you're first starting out, JVing is a well-established thing to do, all right, across the board. A lot of times it's on the dispo side because people are scared to talk to sellers. If you get really good at acquisitions, everything's easy to sell. At the same time, if you're doing your own deals, After you get one or two, it gets really hairy, and you're going to have start having too many contracts, too many things to fall out, right? Too many things to process and follow. So you start deciding. A lot of times people get into wholesaling and they only focus on the dispose side because they don't have the money to spend on the marketing, to talk to the sellers, to do the acquisitions. So all they're doing out there is they're rubbing elbows with people, and they're just going to handle the disposition side. The disposition side technically should be paired up with your transactions, depending on how good your dispo is. They should be managing that because that's how they're making their money. Does that all make sense? Drop a comment. Let me know. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't care. I like that. This is all very important when you're first starting out, because it's going to avoid you from burning yourself out. Okay. When you start having wins, right? When you're increasing your productivity and your job satisfaction, as gay as that sounds, okay? Once you get win after win after win, man, that's when it gets fun. That's really when it gets fun. John, that's a perfect comment right there, man. I love getting them on the contract. I hate dispo. People don't realize that real estate is a two-parted thing, right? There's a front side and a back side. No matter what, you can get deals locked up all day long. Doesn't mean that you're going to be able to sell them. I can take a deal and put it in front of an investor that is 100% their buy box, and they just might be in a bad mood. They might not look at their email that day. They might not get their text message. I'm not joking when I say you have to call people up and you have to talk them into this deal. Hey, this deal is going to make you so much money. You should really look at it. Everybody wants to be flashy and just say, oh, blast out, dispose easy. And it's not. It's just as hard and important as acquisitions. So when you're first getting into real estate, if you're not understanding that, you're not putting as much thought and process and effort between your acquisitions and your dispositions, I don't care what your process is. I don't care if you're only wholesaling a fraction of your deals. I don't care if you're wholesaling all of them. I don't care if you're doing only, burrs wouldn't hurt, but anything, right? Sorry, I was trying to get back on the track. Perfect, prime example. When I was getting into real estate, right, I started cold calling. I was cold calling lenders. I was cold calling agents. I was cold calling everybody, just trying to speak to investors. This way I can talk about their deals. And I was doing hard money lending, right? At the same time, when I was talking to these people and discussing deals, in the beginning, a lot of times I would just sit back and I would let the others do the talking, right? So I could learn, right? I was good at talking to people. I enjoyed talking to people. I just sucked at it, right? So I did nothing but record myself. I did nonstop. I would cold call my wife. I would cold call my brothers. I would cold call family members. I would just put in reps. It's silly to say. I would sit there driving in the car. Instead of listening to music, I would be pitching my own numbers, right? I would be trying to pitch myself. And it's the same thing as if I'm trying to buy a property. You're working through the same problems every time. You're being a family counselor. If you're going to sell the property, you're coming up against the same questions, rebuttals, negotiation tactics, all those things are on repeat, repeat, repeat. So if you're good, if you like doing it and you just suck at it, put in some work, right? Also, this default zone is something that a lot of people need to pull themselves out of. Uh, when they want to start scaling, they think that they're going to offload uh, sorry, trying to get my one thought process in my head before I start going. When they start scaling, right? They want to, all right, I'm just going to hire out PPL. I'm going to go pay per lead. I'm going to get some acquisitions guys, and I'm going to turn it on. The problem is the acquisitions guys aren't going to be up to speed yet. All right. You are going to have to train them from day one. You're then going to have to manage them. All right. One of the whole things that we haven't even discussed over here people management. How are you with people? Okay. So if your first thing is, man, I really suck at talking to people and I want to outsource, I really hate acquisitions. I want to outsource that. I'm going to get some cold callers. I'm going to get some kids in here. I'm going to do some acquisitions training and I'm just going to focus on systems and marketing. If you don't know how to treat people right, you're going to be a horrible boss. And that is one of the things right there, people management. How good are you at being a boss? A lot of times people think that they're fucking good, but they really suck. Just because you give out annual bonuses doesn't make you a good boss. Okay? You have to realize that marketing, transactions, all of these things now are on your shoulders. Okay? Other people have to eat. So your responsibilities go through the roof. And a lot of times people don't think that. They don't think about the responsibilities because they didn't sit down and actually go through all the things that are going to happen when they make that next step. Okay. If all you're going to do is PPL, okay, and now you have one or two extra mouths to feed, your budget, your marketing spend doubles, it triples, right? It goes up because you have to account for more fees, more costs, more dropouts, more everything. Lead to time to contract, everything goes up. What what are what are the tasks that I find most fulfilling? That's going to be your passion side, right? And then what I'm my best at? What do I get the most reward out of? Right? That's going to be your skill side, obviously. Uh, the next question that you need to ask yourself is, how can I improve them? Okay. So either of those two, if it is something that you really don't enjoy doing, right? How can you improve it? Right? Is it just I don't like talking to acquisitions people. I don't like talking to the sellers. I don't like talking to those problems. Okay. Well, how are you with negotiations on the dispo side, right? Can you still find a role? You still enjoy talking to people, but you only hate one versus the other, right? Start asking as many questions as you can and really highlight where you want to be. Okay, because you're building the business out for your life. Otherwise, go get a job. All right. Go be a job. Go work a 9 to 5 somewhere. That's fine. That's awesome. But until you're ready to actually be accountable for yourself and understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then delegate properly. Okay, that's the next part. Okay, how do you actually delegate? Sorry, I had notes here. That's why I was scrolling down to, because I actually have notes on delegation. You have to realize that when you first start delegating, okay, you have to delegate small tasks. Okay, the reason why you have to delegate small tasks is because you most likely you're not going to have your system and processes built out fully. Okay, if you just start saying, "Hey, I want you to start calling these leads," yada yada yada, there's going to be so much missed in the gaps. All right, who are they calling? How are they calling? What are their goals for the calls? Okay, the smaller you break it down, the more focus it's going to be. I'm getting sidetracked because Jerome Powell is walking out. So I'm going to take a pause from my ramblings, and I'm going to pull up the man himself, and I want to see why he's going to drop it. Oh.
Has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to an estimated 2.2% as of August. We're committed to maintaining our economy's strength by supporting maximum employment and returning inflation to our 2% goal. Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to reduce the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by
he already dropped it 50 pips.
This decision reflects our growing confidence that with an appropriate recalibration of our policy stance, strength in the labor market can be maintained in a context of moderate growth and inflation moving sustainably down to 2%. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. GDP rose at an annual rate of 2.2% in the first half of the year, and available data point to a roughly similar pace of growth this quarter. Growth of consumer spending has remained resilient, and investment in equipment and intangibles has picked up from its anemic pace last year. In the housing sector, investment fell back in the second quarter after rising strongly in the first. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. In our summary of economic projections, committee participants generally expect GDP growth to remain solid, with a median projection of 2% over the next few years. In the labor market, conditions have continued to cool. Payroll job gains averaged 116,000 per month over the past 3 months, a notable step down from the pace seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate has moved up, but remains low at 4.2%. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year, and the jobs to workers gap has narrowed. Overall, a broad set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market are now less tight than just before the pandemic in 2019. The labor market is not a source of elevated inflationary pressures. The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.4% at the end of this year, 0.4 higher than projected in June. Inflation has eased notably over the past 2 years, but remains above our longer run goal of 2%. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.2% over the 12 months ending in August, and that excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.7%. Longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 2.3% this year and 2.1% next year, somewhat lower than projected in June. Thereafter, the median projection is 2%. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. For much of the past 3 years, inflation ran well above our 2% goal, and labor market conditions were extremely tight. Our primary focus had been on bringing down inflation, and appropriately so. We are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. Our restrictive monetary policy has helped restore the balance between aggregate supply and demand, easing inflationary pressures and ensuring that inflation expectations remain well anchored. Our patient approach over the past year has paid dividends. Inflation is now much closer to our objective, and we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. As inflation has declined and the labor market has cooled, the upside risks to inflation have diminished and the downside risks to employment have increased. We now see the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals as
I'm going to press pause. Do you know how wild it is to me that they're talking about goals of lowering inflation down to 2? That doesn't mean that they're limiting inflation, right? They're just the rate of inflation they're trying to lower, right? Like, no matter what, your money's going to shit. Thank God we're off gold, guys.
Roughly in balance, and we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate. In light of the progress on inflation and the balance of risks, at today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 0.5 percentage point to 4.75% to 5%. This recalibration of our policy stance will help maintain the strength of the economy and the labor market, and will continue to enable further progress on inflation as we begin the process of moving toward a more neutral stance. We are not on any preset course. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting. We know that reducing policy restraint too quickly could hinder progress on inflation. At the same time, reducing restraint too slowly could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. In our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. If the economy evolves as expected, the median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 4.4% at the end of this year and 3.4% at the end of 2025. These median projections are lower than in June, consistent with the projections for lower inflation and higher unemployment, as well as the changed balance of risks. These projections, however, are not a committee plan or decision. As the economy evolves, monetary policy will adjust in order to best promote our maximum employment and price stability goals. If the economy remains solid and inflation persists, we can dial back policy restraint more slowly. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we are prepared to respond. Policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face in pursuing both sides of our dual mandate. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Steve. Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking our questions. In July, you said you weren't necessarily thinking about a 50. You didn't want to be specific, but you said you were thinking about a 50. The inflation data last week came out a little firmer than expected. Retail was strong, third quarter GDP running 3%. So what changed and made the committee go 50? And how do you respond to the concerns that perhaps it shows the Fed is more concerned about the labor market? And I guess, should we expect more 50s in the months ahead? And based on what should we make that call? Thank you.
So, okay, a lot of questions in there. Let me jump in. Since the last meeting, we have had a lot of data come in. We've had the 2 employment reports, July and August. We've also had 2 inflation reports, including one that came in during blackout. We had the QCEW report, which suggests that suggests that the payroll report numbers that we're getting may be artificially high and will be revised down.
False.
You know that.
Fraud.
We've also seen anecdotal data like the base.
800,000,
we
25%
took all of those.
That's an error.
We went into blackout and we thought about what to do, and we concluded that this was the right thing for the economy, for the people that we serve, and that's how we made our decision. So that's one question.
Holy shit, they've been lying to us, folks.
Second and
How
third.
do we make the, sorry, thank you, sir. How do we figure out in the months ahead, is there another 25 or 50 coming in? Based on what shall we make that call? Thank you.
Sure. So a couple things. A good place to start is the SEP, but let me start with what I said, which was that we're going to be making decisions meeting by meeting based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, the balance of risks. If you look at the SEP, you'll see that it's a process of recalibrating our policy stance away from where we had it a year ago when inflation was high and unemployment low, to a place that's more appropriate given where we are now and where we expect to be. And that process will take place over time. There's nothing in the SEP that suggests the committee is in a rush to get this done. This process evolves over time. Of course, that's a projection. That's a baseline projection. We know, as I mentioned in my remarks, that the actual things that we do will depend on the way the economy evolves. We can go quicker if that's appropriate. We can go slower if that's appropriate. We can pause if that's appropriate. But that's what we were contemplating. I would point you to the SEP as just an assessment of where of what the committee is thinking today, but the individual members rather of the committee are thinking today, assuming that their particular forecasts are realized.
Go to Chris.
Hi, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Thank you. The projections show that the Fed officials expect the Fed funds rate to still be above their estimate of long-run neutral by the end of next year. So does that suggest you see rates as restrictive for that entire period? Does that threaten the weakening of the job market that you said you'd like to avoid? Or does it suggest that maybe people see the short-run neutral as a little bit higher? Thank you.
I think the way I would really characterize it is this. I think people write down their estimate, individuals do. I think every single person on the committee, if you ask them what's your level of certainty around that, they would say there's a wide range where that could fall. So I think we don't know. There are model-based approaches and empirically based approaches that estimate what the neutral rate will be at any given time. But realistically, we know it by its works. So that leaves us in a place where we expect, in the base case, to be continuing to remove restriction, and we'll be looking at the way the economy reacts to that, and that'll be guiding us in our thinking about the question that we're asking at every meeting, which is our policy stance the appropriate one? We know, if you go back, we know that the policy stance we adopted in July of 2023 came at a time when unemployment was 3.5% and inflation was 4.2%. Today, unemployment is up to 4.2%. Inflation's down to a few tenths above 2. So we know that it is time to recalibrate our policy to something that is more appropriate given the progress on inflation and on employment moving to a more sustainable level. So the balance of risks are now even. And this is the beginning of that process. I mentioned the direction of which is toward a sense of neutral. And we'll move as fast or as slow as we think is appropriate in real time. But what you have is our individual accumulation
We want to talk about volatility, right? Like makes the announcement, everything spikes. It's all sorry. All right, I'm done listening to old guys speak. I'm shocked that they went to 50 bips, but nothing shocked me anymore. We'll see what happens. We're gonna have to play it close to see what happens for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, it was well, it was only just because it was coming once out. So, does anybody have any questions on this? By the way, anybody want me to go back, put an example in, or is anybody having trouble and they want to know what they should do next? Uh, a lot of times people overthink it. The conversation we were doing yesterday was just spend more on marketing, close more deals till you have your own system and processes set up. Okay, until you know your own KPIs for marketing. Until you have that in, then you're not ready to start hiring out and scaling and something like that, right? So make sure you're doing everything fully before you're ready to scale, right? Guys, we talk all the time, deep, not wide. Deep, not wide. So, what do you want to talk about? That's all I got on the passion skill matrix. Well, that goes, yeah, it's like I've talked about hiring this entire time. Everything about this is scaling and hiring, right? So when you go to your first hire, and everybody wants to hire a VA for cold calling, that's not going to solve your problems, right? A lot of times where you you're defaulting at, right, the things that you don't like doing, yes, you can hire out for, but that's not going to solve all your problems. It's just going to create more. Okay? You have to understand that hiring isn't going to solve problems. It's going to create more work, which is okay. That's what your goal is. Create more work, more revenue. It's not going to create less stress unless that role is like something that you desperately need, obviously. Anyway, I'm just going around in circles at this point. Guys, tomorrow night in our office, open office, doors kick open at 5:30, and then we kick everybody out around 10 or something like that. But this month we're focusing on acquisitions. If you guys are in DFW, come on out. Join from Eventbrite. Seats are filling up. I don't even know if we have any available left, but it doesn't matter. Come on out anyway. Halloween golf tournament, second annual golf tournament charity. Everything goes to support the Cowtown Warriors. They are an amazing group out of Cowtown, Fort Worth. I didn't know that actually. I had no clue that Fort Worth was called Cowtown. So today I learned. Fort Worth, Cowtown Warriors. They're helping veterans in need in North Texas. They're an amazing group. Come on out to the golf tournament. Support a good cause. If anybody needs anything, join the Discord. We're always there. We're always talking. Drop a comment. Let us know. Smash that like button. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.
You want results, then you gotta put the work in. Turn off OnlyFans, quit fucking jerking. You want results, you gotta put in the time. You gotta put in the time.
Oh, that played in the stream. I'm pretty sure.
What? Nick Sicilian. I'm still there. You just turned off the camera. You didn't remove me.
What?